It's Friday, August 25th, 2023. Okay, let's do our show segment up front. You can go over to patreon.com/Ozone Nightmare to support the show via that platform. If you're not a big fan of that, if you go over to the show homepage, you will also see at the top of the right-hand side in an arranged square row of, little shapes, there's a PayPal icon that will let you donate through that platform. You will see a link to Lando's Amazon author page. It will look like a book with a bookmark over the front, as if it is a cloth one draped over and not a hard-printed one that will eventually crease the page if you leave it in too long. No, this is one that is cloth and draped. Look for that. That will take you there. There's a skull that will take you to my Linktree. And at the bottom, there is also a Patreon link if you prefer to go there instead of directly. And that's how you can support the show. In the next couple weeks, there will be a new episode with myself and Len Kabaczynski where we will be talking about the shot-on-video film Justice Ninja Style. So look for that over on Len's channel. I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun because that movie is quite something. And if you haven't seen it, it's all still on YouTube. It's broken up into parts, but you can watch it for free. And each part is about 6 or 7 minutes long for a grand total of 87 minutes. And it is both what you would expect from shot on video and better. I reviewed it a while ago, so refer to that review for my full thoughts on it. But we just haven't gotten around to it till now. We will be doing that, and and there will be a new late night in September with Dr. Doug Bielmeyer, where we're going to talk about his album that is now available for pre-order. So I will promote that. It's called Music for Billionaires. It is an ambient experimental album, and the title is, I believe, meant to be satirical. So go listen to that. It's on Spotify, and I think you can pre-order it everywhere now. But I know it started off on Spotify, and I think it's now expanded everywhere. So that will come out, and we'll be playing some tracks from it. So I get to use my little sound recorder thing to better effect than usual, which is normally just to annoy Lando. And so opening segment.
You're working on the assumption that it annoys me.
Yeah, well, whatever.
It doesn't annoy me. I just worry that it's the fear of overuse.
I was actually told, I forgot, I don't think I mentioned this on the show.
Yeah.
Somebody said that they liked me playing clips from movies now.
Oh no, that's great. It's not the clips are great. It's more the
oh no, the stupid stuff, but see, now that I have a use that people like, I'll move to that use as opposed to just playing random sound effects unless I think they're applicable. But now I can actually, like, if we mention a movie and mention a quote, I'm going to try to have
well,
a quote ready
if you know you're coming in with something,
or the evergreen stuff, like I'll start pulling Thing quotes and Big Trouble in Little China quotes, just stuff like that. But now that I know that people actually enjoy the clips, which is fun for me because a lot of times I do fixate on what people say. I have some doozies for the review this week. Holy shit, have I got some? You will be highly entertained by some of the stuff I'll be playing later. So that will be coming. So there's a bit of a tease for later. But
the ambient thing is interesting. So it's fascinating the way music affects the creativity. Yeah. And I know that because I was writing a book and I got like a third of the way through, and then I moved, and now everything is kind of screwed up, and I need to walk away from that book for a while because I realized I I can't continue to write it the way I was writing it, and I need space. So I was working on another project, but I'm very connected to sound when I'm writing. It tends to set off like a frequency in me. I don't know any other way to explain it. That's why like music is kind of so important, because it kind of stimulates this weird zone. And I am having the hardest time finding I guess the musical rhythm for this new project. I also got a horrible I got that reaction from my wife. I'm sure you've had this before, where she was like, "What are you working on?" And I explained it, and like she kind of rolled her eyes at me. And I was like, "Damn!" I was like, "Been married a long time, and that's the first time that she's really rolled her eyes at me."
As far as as far as your writing, you mean?
Yeah, because my wife is part of the reason that I think my wife and I got together so well is because like early on she was an editor and I was a writer, so like, we kind of spoke the same language, and she was always kind of fascinated by what I was up to. We've been married for a long time now, and she's become kind of very sunk into like political spy fiction, like military spy fiction, like a lot of very Tom Clancy type of stuff, and like action mystery things, like the oh god, what's his name, the
Clive Cussler?
No, she doesn't like him, man. Have you
Michael
ever read
Crichton?
Have you ever well yeah, she loves Crichton. Have you ever read early Clive Cussler?
No.
The sexism.
I just know the name. I don't know.
Sexism in those books is so amazing. I mean, like, it's right there on the page where he's like, "Well, she was a woman, so I didn't think she could do it." And you're like, "Whoa!"
Well, I know two things she can do, and they involve a kitchen and a bed. Ha ha ha!
Yeah, that's Clive Cussler. Apparently, he eased out of that later on, but no, someone that
I wonder why.
Tom Cruise did a movie of it. And they just did the Amazon series a while back. What's that called?
Oh,
the
Jack
detective
Reacher.
Series? Reacher. Yeah. Reacher. My brain kept going Lasher, and I'm like, no, that's fucking Anne Rice.
Jack Lasher.
Yeah, Jack Lasher. So she's very into that kind of fiction now, and she reads a lot. And I've always been we always had a mild intersection in like science fiction, not a massive science fiction, but certain areas. You know what I mean? Like she was never really a fan of cyberpunk. But we both like Michael Crichton, and there's like, she liked what's his name, Richard K. Morgan stuff. There's always been an intersection, but I'm getting weirder as I get older. I acknowledge that. Maybe not on the outside, but on the inside, I'm getting weirder, and I like weirder ideas. And the more you read and the more you look around, you realize that if you're really gonna write something interesting, you almost have to find a world that just hasn't been done yet, right? And I had an idea for a world, but it's a little weird. It's a high concept thing. And for me, I was like, if I can hammer down the rules of this world, I think I can tell a lot of really interesting stories in this environment. But it's weird. It's a weird concept. And it's weirder is that if you know what's actually happening, it makes it really weird, because there's this thing that happens sometimes in fantasy where you, the reader, are reading the book and it's fantasy, right? But the author understands that there's scientific explanations for everything, and that it's actually a form of science fiction. You know what I mean? Richard K. Morgan did this. So if you read his Steel Remains trilogy, you find out, if you've read the Takashi Kovacs books, the Altered Carbon books, you realize that the gods from this period are actually the envoys from the Kovacs books. Kovacs shows up. Like, he is one of these deities, and the whole idea is it's so far in the future that the only people who really survive the test of time were the envoys, because they were the only ones who could kind of handle being disembodied, right? And then the people who live in that time don't realize that all this technology exists because they're things essentially got reset, but all the technology is still there. So it's kind of like having, satellites functioning around a planet where all the people on the planet are still living in, like, the medieval times, right? Anything technological would happen, they would think would be some kind of magic, right? And the thing is, if you've never read the Altered Carbon books, for you, it's just kind of weird God stuff. But if you've read those books, you're like, that's a satellite. That's an AI. I was like, you're writing science fiction here. But there's a lot of books, I think, that are like that, where you don't realize you're reading sci-fi. You think you're just reading fantasy. And so you know how you and I was going about how like magic has rules, magic should have rules. When I was younger, I could write magic because I was still religious. Like when I was younger, I had religion, and religion is magic is a backdoor into religion. It's magical thinking, right? You believe in in that kind of stuff. As I got older, I don't believe in that shit anymore. I don't believe in a lot of stuff, which is kind of a strength for me because I'm also not bothered by impossible, silly things. But it's hard for writing fantasy because fantasy without magic is, I don't know, it's kind of boring, don't you think?
It
just turns in.
I mean,
yeah,
it can be.
It can be. Like for me,
it's tougher to make it interesting. I guess that's
I always like to have the what the fuck element of that magic brings to fantasy. It's otherwise it's just a historical fiction book, or if it's a fantasy book that takes place in another world, like God's War. What's her name? Is it Hurley? Cameron Hurley. Cameron Hurley.
Yep,
God's War to me was such an awesome book because she found a way to get into kind of a magical fantasy element while still maintaining technology. So there is technology in this world, but it's all kind of, they're a terraform planet. Like they were kind of left there. And then the strange relationship with the bugs on this planet has created a kind of quote unquote magic, right? But it's not traditional magic like anyone could think of. It's all weirdly, biologically bug based, right? I love that. I love those books, as grim as they are. I love those books because the world is so fascinating. It's not someplace I've been before, right? But sometimes I think there's people that when they realize it's sci-fi, it messes with their sense of fantasy. Like they want to read fantasy, and when you give them all the information, they're like, oh, it's sci-fi. And my wife is kind of like that. My wife wants to read fantasy. That's like her secondary genre, which is that she really likes all the spy fiction and mystery, but then she'll read fantasy on the side. So when I was explaining my whole world concept to her and the fact that it's actually all like year million. You remember that book Year Million, about what the human race would be like in a million years?
Yep.
Yeah, it's all very year million sci-fi stuff. But if you don't know that, it all comes off like magic. But once I told her that, she just rolled her eyes at me. I was like, oh, man. It's like, we got this far in our marriage before you rolled your eyes at my creativity. And she was nice about it. And then she tried to deny she did it. But it's okay, because at the end of the day, I know that she's in a completely different genre than I am. Which is good, because when she reads my shit, she reads it ruthlessly. Which goes back to the whole thing that you always want to create art that will impress the people closest to you, because those are the people that you care most about.
Sure.
But because they're so close to you, you'll never produce something that impresses them, because they see it for what it is. They see it birth, they see it come out, they see it evolve. You know what I mean?
Well, to some degree, I mean, yes, there is that. It does wear off the novelty, sure.
Yeah.
I think in the case of my wife, your wife also is in editing and writing, so it's also different as far as her professional background. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas my wife isn't, so the mysticism is still there for a lot.
Oh, right. So what you're telling me is I should have gotten myself a non.
No. But in other words, if my wife was, let's say, if she worked with Photoshop all day or something,
no,
else
absolutely,
like that, then I think it would be different.
No, I get that exactly. I really get that, and that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because growing up, I had girlfriends who were very impressed with me, which was like always very. Do you ever get suspicious when people are impressed with you? Like,
Oh, constantly. I'm like, why? What are you talking about? This is garbage. What do you mean?
yeah, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Are you trying to pull?
I know.
Yeah. But
And my go-to move is, oh, well, I don't think you've actually looked at good artists. Here's 8 artists that are 80 times better than me. Maybe look at their stuff, and it'll reset your expectations a bit.
yeah, go read these books and then come back to me, okay?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was just very funny. And I'm in research mode now for this world because I have to figure out the kinds of shit that I get up to. I was researching Civil War ironclad ships as I was looking at not star maps, but like maps of the solar system. And I need to find one of those, those 3-dimensional maps that of the solar system that you crank them.
Oh,
you crank them.
Great.
It shows you where all the planets are at different times of year.
Zooming in and altering.
No. It shows you where all the planets are in reference to the sun at any time of year.
Oh, you're talking about the ones that are kind of like
it's like
Dark Crystal, where she's got that 3-dimensional model rotating.
Yeah,
around.
It shows you where planets are at different times of year.
Because
the whole thing is, if you are traveling between planets, right? I need to know where things are. Yeah, exactly. Because Jupiter could be on the other side of the sun, and it would take you forever to get there. Whereas sometimes the planets are aligned. So yeah, I was thinking about that and whatnot for this, but it's just so funny the places that research can sometimes take you. But yes, I got the eye roll, which was funny. I have a feeling that now that I've gotten it once, it's all downhill from here. It's just gonna be a lot of eye roll from here on. She eye rolled the bears in my book. A lot of people eye roll actually the anthropomorphic elements in my stuff. I've noticed.
I would just say, well, look at Baldur's Gate 3. You can have sex with them, so clearly anthropomorphized bears are not as weird as you think. Right? That was the big thing that came out of that. Is, hey, you can fuck a bear.
Actually, what was really amusing to me was when I was watching Guardians 3, there's that one planet they land on where it's all anthropomorphized humans. They're all animal people. And I was like, see? I was like, this isn't that weird.
No.
I was like, James Gunn had the same idea. It's like,
Not that weird at all.
Yeah. That's probably one of the weirdly sad things in that movie, which is that they land on this planet, they meet all these people, and one of them, I can't remember what type of animal she is, but she helps them by telling them, like, they don't speak their language, but she understands they're trying to help, and this one animal woman explains to them where the bad guy is. And then the High Evolutionary basically destroys the planet, kills everybody. And it was funny because my kids didn't catch it. Like, they knew there were high stakes to it, but they never stopped. And it takes kind of an adult mindset to stop and be like, oh, wait a minute. He just killed all those nice people. Like that little girl that throws the ball at Drax in the trailer. Dead. Annihilated, yeah. So it's quite creepy. But anyway, speaking of, well, you know what? You want me to do art or comics here? I got 2 things I wanted to bring up. The art thing
first.
is quick.
We'll do art
to
comics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I tried something new, and I actually really enjoyed it, and I wanted to share because it was something weird. Have you ever heard of a company called Displate?
I've heard of them. Yeah, I've heard.
They do metal posters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I've never had an interest.
I've
in
never
them.
really looked at it, but I know what they do.
I've never had an interest in them because they print on metal, and I'm kind of like, well, I don't really care because if I want to cut things or move things around, right? But they also have this one section of their site, which is basically these limited editions. And normally, I sneer at the whole limited edition thing, right? But what they did is they print these in such a way that they actually have these 3D paint-like elements. So we were saying, like, we always like the topographical nature to actual art, right? And there's this one picture they have. It's called The Lady and the Crow. I saw it in an ad. I feel so lame about
limited
this.
Editions, Lady and the Crow. I see it. I got it.
Yeah,
look at that. That's nice.
And I saw the way that all the feathers.
Huge.
Yeah, he is. And I saw the way that the light hits the feathers, and I was like, oddly, I was like, I really want that.
Is this from something?
It's an artist. An artist did it.
Oh, but it's
'Cause
not
remember,
from a story or something.
No, I don't think so. I hope not, because I like to create my own stories for
Well,
weird
that's
shit
weird
like that.
because it says as kids they loved exploring these woods. Now after the curse took him, this is the only place where he can be. Oh, so maybe that's the whole story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I see this. There's close-ups of it, which are nice.
yeah, so I bought it on like a just to test it out, and honestly, I am really impressed. It looks really good in person. It has a lot of texture. It looks really cool as you walk past it with the light kind of gleaming off of it.
I think there's a whole series of these.
They put a new one out every Thursday.
No. What I mean is, I think this guy has done a series of The Lady and the Crow.
Has he?
I'm on his art site, and there's several that look like they're related to this.
Does it? Oh, I'll have to check those out.
Man,
Yeah, but
his art's good. Anato
and the thing
Finstark is his name.
I normally don't care about the disc plates because it's just art printed on metal, right? It's another place for people to kind of sell their art. You know what I mean? But I actually really like the nature of that they tried to give it like a 3D element to make it feel so that it's not just a somebody printed something out on a sheet of metal.
Yeah.
Now, that said, some of them are really shitty.
Well, like everything. Right?
Like everything, yeah. And that's the thing. Everybody has their own interests. Like the ones that came out now are all cats. And I'm kind of like, listen, man, I don't even want to have cats as pets. But it's neat. It's neat that they do that. I just wanted to mention it because if anybody's looking for something a little different, they also do something where they've got illuminated effects. So if you go to the limited editions and you look at the...
he did Spider-Man 2099 from Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, send me the link to that site.
Yeah, send it.
We need to stop digging because we're going to get sidetracked into buying art. But
well,
the
I
Lumino
any room, so I'm fine.
I still do, sadly. The Lumino page is basically metal plates, but they have introduced like metallics and stuff that actually glows. And there's a really cool one. It's called Define the Gods. I haven't bought these. I don't know what they look like in person, but it's from. I think it's supposed to be from Assassin's Creed. And when you look at it, it is really neat. Like the eyes of Osiris glow, and like the way they've done the sand is like the armor is metallic. Things like that. It's just neat that they've taken what are prints and kind of tried to elevate them so that there's more going on, and not at a psychotic price either. Like I think that's the thing that kind of surprised me is I expected to pay more. The downside is no, you're not necessarily with the limited editions, you got to wait to see what they put out because it does not behoove them to do this with everything, right? But if you keep an eye out, I feel bad because there's a few that are already sold out that I saw and I was like, oh, I would totally put that on my wall. Plus the mounting is, I will give them this. Having mounted close to like 100 pictures in my office, the fact that it comes with this sticky plate that's got a magnet on it, you literally just stick it to the wall and then you stick the plate on. I was like, okay, that is pretty fucking easy. I'll give you that. And I wonder if to some degree they didn't make these to survive dorm rooms. Because I mean, think about the chaos of a dorm room. But if I had a friend who had magnetically plated art on their wall, you're not telling me that you wouldn't go in there and prank them and pull them all off and put something else on there really quick.
Oh, probably.
Right? I mean, come on. You did that to people with their computers. You would do that with their art on their walls.
Oh, I did indeed.
So, but yes, I just want to bring that up because I didn't know about this. I thought it was really cool. And I will, in the future, see what kind of stuff they put out. And yeah, I just wanted to just bring that to people's attention. So because yeah, like there's of the 4 that are available, 3 I have no interest in. But that Lady and the Crow thing, that kind of that's kind of weird, dark art. Plus there's like a very Van Gogh quality to the way they did the feathers and everything. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's very nice.
So that said, I'm going to review a graphic novel, which I haven't done in a bit. I was at the store the other day, and on a whim, I decided to pick up some She-Hulk. And I picked up the complete collection of She-Hulk by Charles Soule and Javier Pulido. Right. Yeah, I think I see you say it. All right.
You would say it better than me.
Yeah, no. So yes, the She-Hulk complete collection by Sol and Pulido. Now I'm gonna come right out and say the art is not good. Look, I'm sorry, Mr. Pulido. I don't like his art. You should look.
I'm not.
Go
looking.
look. Yeah,
looking.
it's not good.
Let's see,
Like, you know how we're always like, oh well, the illustrations match the story. No.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not good.
Is this the guy who did is it X Factor? Remember when X Factor kind of went crazy and modernized? Remember
wasn't
where
that
they
Frank?
had
Wasn't that Frank Quitely? No, he did X-Men.
No.
Yeah.
It was when they had that. Remember the Green Spud, whatever that thing's name was.
Oh no, that's Mike Allred.
Oh, Allred did that? Okay.
Yeah, Allred did that.
This
and
looks,
Allred,
but you see what I'm saying?
Allred,
this is Allred's type of thing.
Allred is better. Yeah, it's in the eyes, but Allred is better. Yeah.
I'm not saying Allred, and it's not a quality comparison, but it's that style of simple, cartoony art.
I'll do a quality comparison. Allred is better. Like
but I'm not saying
She-Hulk,
that. But what I'm saying is if people want in their mind to have a frame of reference of the style, it is very low detail, simple colors, simple shapes.
Yeah,
Whereas
almost
Frank
like
Quitely
he did it.
Has a lot of little lines in his stuff, so you wouldn't go that.
Almost like he did it, like he cut it all out with paper.
Well,
like,
this isn't Allred inspired, or even the guy who did Shade the Changing Man. That's this type of thing.
I don't like it because there are times where if she was in green, I wouldn't know who She-Hulk was.
Well, it's the facial expression is the facial build is interesting to me.
Yeah, and the thing was funny is that halfway through the book it changes to other people, and the other people, like at one point it changed, and I was like, well, I like these people more. Like, can we keep this guy? It's weird. They got some weird artists in this, but I do not like Pulido style of art. And the fact that I enjoyed this book is kind of a testament to like the fact that the book was good, because art wise it was the decision to just kind of try to ignore it, which isn't good in comics, right? And it's been a while since I picked something up and thought, yeah, I don't like this art, but I'm gonna keep reading. Yeah. So I'm gonna warn you right now, because I know that you would open this up and be like, no.
Look, I'm the same as you. If the story is good enough, I don't really care.
Well, and that's the thing.
Because, I finished The Authority after they shifted off Art Adams to whoever the hell the other guy was. Which I found to be such a harsh shift in how...
Yeah, and
the biggest problem with that was not that the other guy wasn't a good artist.
It's that it was Art Adams.
Well, you went from somebody with such a distinctive, unique art style to somebody who, honestly... I wouldn't be able to identify his art if you put other artists next to him that were similar. They would look the same. It's not even necessarily a criticism.
Yeah, and the funny thing is they went from Frank Quitely to Art Adams, and that for me felt seamless. Not because they're similar, but because Frank Quitely is so specific and so good, and Art Adams is so specific and so good.
That's why that shift works. You're going from one type of weird detail-oriented artist to another, and so you're like, okay, that's fine.
Exactly. You had to back it up with someone who was very much themselves, not generic. Yes. And this guy Pulido is very much himself. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
I want more detail. I want more expression.
You could go from Adam Hughes to Frank Cho and not care.
Oh yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. That's the difference. Yeah. That's going from Quitely to Art Adams, but then Art Adams to the other guy at the end of Authority was too much of a move.
So that's my warning about the art. Now, that said, I actually really enjoyed this book. I don't read a lot of She-Hulk. I haven't read a lot of She-Hulk since
do you know the background of the writer?
No.
He was apparently a legal something. He said, because it says the writer brought his legal expertise to this book.
That makes a lot of sense. So the story. What's interesting about this story is that it's very small scale. If anything, it does feel like a tied together story. The book begins and ends. The collection begins and ends with the idea of something, which is that She-Hulk has a file for a wrongful death suit that was brought against her and a bunch of superheroes and villains. And she can find, other than this one piece of paperwork for it, no one knows about it, can't find anything about it. And it's kind of, this is like the mystery in the background. Beyond that, she's working as a lawyer, working as a superhero lawyer, and it gets to the whole the math of how do you do that. Where's the line? And it's actually quite interesting, the cases that she deals with along the way. And that's what the things I enjoyed about it, is that it's not your typical, there's a big bad and we have to fight it. You know, it's not always end of the world shit. It's dealing with kind of the everyday of stuff. And then
this
getting
guy's
into
bio is fascinating. He's still a lawyer. He was a lawyer at a big New York firm. He still is one. And he was brought in 2020. He was hired by Marvel to be the legal consultant for the television show.
Oh, for the She-Hulk show?
Yeah, the She-Hulk show. So this is his
and honestly,
immigration law, transaction law, and corporate law are his fields of expertise.
It reads a lot like that, and not
this
in a bad
way. Graduated from Columbia Law, and even I know that that's a name in terms of law schools, and I don't know anything about the law.
Yeah, so like one of the court cases she has is Dr. Doom's son wants immunity, not immunity, but he wants asylum. He wants asylum
immigration
in the
law,
U.S.
right there.
Right, and then the whole thing is that. But you're the prince of I forgot the name of his country. Dr. Doomland.
Latveria?
Yeah.
Latvia?
Dr. Doomland. And then there's a whole thing in there about how Dr. Doom won't let them get to court. And then finally she gets them to court, and then Dr. Doom kidnaps them, even though she wins the case. But like the U.S. won't do anything about it. And then there's a big conversation with Daredevil, who at this point is now practicing California because he's been disbarred in New York. And he's basically saying how you have to find the balance between being a lawyer and a superhero, and that what are you going to do, and how they are different things, but you have to find the balance, right? And it's very interesting the way they do that. Like there's a really midway through, there's a story about Captain America, which, you know, normally I'm like, is there really anything new to talk about Captain America? But this is at that point where Captain America is old. This is before they did the whole Nazi Captain America thing, or whatever, the Hydra Captain America thing. So this is when Captain America was old, and they thought he was going to die soon. And so there's a case brought up where I guess a guy on his deathbed tells this story about how before Steve Rogers became Captain America, this guy got involved with a bunch of bad sorts, and his brother was friends with Steve Rogers. So when his brother came looking for him, he brought Steve Rogers. And Steve Rogers and the brother basically mouthed off to these bad guys, and this guy is implying that basically his brother was shot because Steve Rogers wouldn't shut the fuck up. That basically it's Steve Rogers' fault that his brother was killed, and he's bringing a wrongful death suit on his deathbed, right? So the case is being brought, and he comes to She-Hulk, and he's like, hey, I want you to do this case. And she's like, really? She's like, me? She's like, you know, like Stark's got lawyers. And he's like, no, he's like, I want you to take this case. And when she goes to court, there's a really great thing with too. She needs to find a lawyer who will basically allow her to work out of their office because she hasn't passed the California bar. And they find, so remember Multiple Man? All his multiples ran away, and he collected them all.
Yeah, of course.
Right? The lawyer that they find is one of the Multiple Man's multiples, who has become one of the main Hollywood lawyers in California. And so when She-Hulk shows up, she's like, dude, what's the deal? She's like, didn't Maddox absorb you guys? And he's like, yeah, he did. He's like, but when he found me, I basically said, hey, man, I love being an entertainment lawyer, and I make a shit ton of money. He's like, why don't you leave me here, and I will send you half of whatever I make. And then you can just go fuck off and do whatever you want and still have income. And Maddox was like, you know what? That seems like a fair deal. So this is apparently one of the few Maddox clones who is never
leasing himself.
Yes, he's basically buying his life. He doesn't have to be absorbed because he is useful as income for Jamie Maddox. Is Jamie Maddox or Madrox?
I think it's Madrox.
Okay, Madrox. There you go. Yeah.
Maddox is a pitcher.
Yeah, Madrox says Jimmy. Yeah, so yeah, it's one of the multiples, which is very funny. And then at one point, he gives them legal aids, and he says, "Okay, guys, I'm gonna give you some legal aids to help you out here." He's like, "They're my multiples." He's like, "I gotta warn you though, multiples of multiples don't really work that great. He's like, so they'll get you coffee and shit, but don't expect any heavy thinking out of them, which I thought was very funny.
Well, that's
like
that's what I always thought it was. Is the more that there are, the worse they become.
Yes, but this is like only one of the only ones out there at this point, because Multiple Man absorbed them all except for this one. So I love these little tidbits, and that's one of the things I really like about the She-Hulk book is how they tuck in on like the rest of the Marvel universe.
Jesus
it kind
Christ. I was looking up to see how his powers worked, and apparently at one point his limit was 50 of them.
Yeah.
But then Hydra tried to like monkey with him, and they made it where he could do more. The problem is they didn't realize that he's unable to be mind controlled because they all have somewhat independent thought. So a whole bunch of them drowned most of Hydra. They killed
Oh,
a
yeah.
bunch of them. Jesus.
Oh, yeah. I love Multiple Man. He's a great character. And when they use him, I mean, I remember in X-Force, when they used to go into these big fights, and suddenly there'd be like 50 Multiple Man kicking the shit out of people.
Oh, shit. Somebody was trying to kill him, so he jammed his hand in their mouth, multiplied himself, and exploded the guy's head. Holy fuck. Man, I'm becoming a fan of Madrox more than I ever was before. Yeah. Madrox jammed his hand into the guy's name was Mellencamp's mouth and activated his power, creating a duplicate inside of him and exploding him from the inside.
And he had his own comic for a while, too.
Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I'm going to have to find that now. Anyway, so they're using Madrox. They're using Madrox's clone to work out of the Hollywood office, whatever. And the case is basically that they're going up against Daredevil. Daredevil is basically the one prosecuting the case. So there's kind of this weird thing where like Daredevil is there and he's like and he's not holding back, and so they basically are putting Steve Rogers on like trial for the fact that he may have been responsible for this guy's death. And then what you find out as the story goes on is that they were Nazis. It was a Nazi group that had gotten to the U.S. and that it was basically bringing young people in to act as kind of like a terrorist army, right? And that Steve and this guy got involved with them, and Steve Rogers and his friend tried to get this guy out. And then when they did that, they got caught by the Nazis. And there was this one Nazi, and he basically put a gun to Steve Rogers' head. And Steve Rogers, being Steve Rogers, was like, I'm not afraid of you. You're a fucking Nazi. You're a piece of shit. He's like, we're going to fucking destroy you. Go America. And the guy was like, if you keep talking, I'm going to shoot your friend. I'm going to shoot your friend if you keep talking. And Steve Rogers looked at the people in the room and was like, this guy's going to shoot me because I am talking. He's like, you see how weak he is? I was like, he's going to kill us anyway. I don't care. And essentially Steve Rogers said, he's a fucking Nazi. So the Nazi, of course, shot Steve Rogers' friend because he's a Nazi. At which point the FBI showed up, who had been watching these people, and caught everybody. And Steve Rogers, and the FBI guy in the story basically says, hey, Steve, you're a tough kid. You should probably be in the military. And he's like, no, I'm a 4F. He goes, they won't take me. And he's like, well, you know what? I heard about so-and-so running some experimental operations on anybody who will volunteer if you're interested. And the idea is that this whole thing was classified. So Steve Rogers can't even really talk about it. But it's one of the things that essentially was the impetus for him getting into the program to become Captain America. That his guilt that his friend was basically killed by the Nazis in front of him. But She-Hulk can't use most of that because it's classified.
Sure.
And then at which point, she gives a big speech like Spader does in Boston Legal, and they win. And then afterwards, Captain America tells them both that essentially he told Daredevil to take the case. And they're like, why? And he says, because I told Daredevil to take the case and to not hold back. He's like, because I can't, he's like, I did not want this case to be won on a technicality and have people always wonder if I had done something bad. Because I wanted this case to be won outright, and the only way to do that was to have two lawyers really go at it. And in the end, you find out that it's basically, I think it was like Baron Strucker or some other fucking Nazi that put this guy up to it. And they go and find Baron Strucker and kick his ass. But the whole story, it's interesting the way like they handle it. There's a very sort of legal mind, and especially now that you've said that, it makes a lot of sense. But in the background of all this is this weird file that somebody brought a wrongful death suit against She-Hulk. And it basically concludes. So early on in the book, you meet this guy who is who's supposedly a Marvel, like, what do we call the jobbers? That's like C-class hero or something like that. He's not even in B class. He's like a C class kind of guy. One of these guys, like West Coast Avengers
tiers.
type. Right?
Third
tier. So early on in the book, she calls this guy, and he's like, "Hey, there's this case against us?" And he's like, "Oh no, I don't know anything about that." And she's like, "Yeah, that's really weird." She's like, and then but the problem is, as she asks other people, like she asks Tigra about it, and when Tigra finds out, she goes into like a weird mental state and almost kills them. And they're like, okay, something's weird going on. And then like the Shocker's on this thing. So when they go to see the Shocker, I guess he's trying to, Shocker at this point has kind of gone neutral or something like that. And so She-Hulk's like, hey, he's like, there's this wrongful death thing against you. And he's like, I don't know anything about that. He goes, but honestly, he's like, I got so much memory loss. And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, every time I use the Shocker gloves, he's like, they make this vibration. And like, it can sometimes mess with my head. It can kind of dislodge things. And she's like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, and then he's like, and then I kind of have to like knock things back into shape. And she's like, well, how do you do that? And he takes the Shocker glove and he basically punches himself in the head with it. And he's like, it's okay. He's like, it's okay. I do this all the time. But as the story goes on, you realize that there's some kind of weird shit going on with this case where like people act psychotically when they are asked about it. And when you get toward the end of the story, so it's like the arc kind of comes around, you basically realize that what it is that one guy, man, what was his name, who you thought was just a C-class hero, he's actually a magic-based villain. And essentially what he figured out was, this sorcerer, he realized that there's no future in being a bad guy, right? You don't retire. There's no money. So he was like, you know what? I want to be a hero. He's like, and he found this spell that allowed him to warp reality so that he could be, like, basically alter everyone's memories, right? But to do that, you need a lot of juice. You need a lot of sacrifices. So they went out to the Midwest and they found a town. And so he got these villains to help him. The villains didn't really know what was going on. And they had this big spell, and it was like basically encasing the town, and a bunch of heroes showed up. She-Hulk managed to save one of the people in the town, and when she went back in, the spell went off. So they have no memory of the town or the event. And the sorcerer, the evil sorcerer, was suddenly remembered as a good guy. So he kicked the shit out of the other villains that were there, and he was like, hey, we caught them. And they were like, yeah, thanks so much. And that guy went on to just be an everyday hero, and everybody in the world remembers him as being this, West Coast Avenger level hero who's always kind of been around, which allowed him to kind of retire and to basically make money off of being an ex-hero and things like that. But he left these kind of little curses about that if anybody starts pursuing it, it will, make them go a little bit homicidal. And the only person who remembers any of it is the guy that She-Hulk saved, who filed a wrongful death suit against all of them, which everybody promptly kind of got rid of, and there was just a little bit of shred of paperwork. So it's great, because the end fight is that nobody recollects any of this, and even She-Hulk turns against her own people because they realize that he's put a curse in her head as well. And what's funny is that to some degree, it's fucking the Shocker who helps everybody, because in having shocked the shit out of himself so many times, he kind of starts to remember. And then when they tell him enough about it, he actually remembers. So he shows up and stops the evil sorcerer from destroying everybody. And when the evil sorcerer is like, why would you do this? He's like, why would you stop me? And the Shocker's like, because you didn't bring me with you, you asshole. He's like, you did all this shit. He's like, and you didn't take me with you. He's like, why would you not offer me the same thing? He's like, you don't think I want to not be a villain and retire? And he's like, I wanted it all for myself. And he's like, well, and that's the reason that you're a fucking dick. So the Shocker destabilizes him, and then She-Hulk smashes the shit out of him. And yeah, but it's neat because it's an arc that goes through the whole book, right? It begins with it and it kind of ends with it. And once you realize what's going on, then you kind of go back and you're like, oh, there's some things here that don't add up. It makes a lot of sense. So I enjoyed it in that respect. And all the legal cases are kind of fun and interesting, especially if you're like me, where you have watched kind of legal shows in the past. And it's a comedy as well, which is She-Hulk. She-Hulk is always going to be funny. Like if you like the She-Hulk show, then you will probably like this book because it is very much in that same vein. It makes sense that they brought that guy on to work on the She-Hulk show because the DNA is there. And he is really good, like I said, of taking the greater Marvel universe and kind of plugging it into the books. And I'm not even mentioning all the other weird shit like her legal assistant is some kind of weird, I don't know what she is. They never really explain it in this book, but she's some kind of weird, I think a mutant, and she's got a monkey that can make itself into the size of like a fucking gorilla. And all the weird. She lives in a building that an ex-mutant rents to anybody with superpowers because she used to be when she was a mutant until the whole House of M thing happened, and when the House of M thing happened, she lost her powers, and she remembers how hard it is for anybody with powers to rent because it puts the insurance premiums through the roof. So now she rents exclusively to people with powers because she understands how hard it is. And it's like there's all these interesting, thought-out little details throughout the entire book. It's very well written. It's very entertaining. I just wish it had a better artist. If this had had somebody who like a Frank Cho or an Adam Hughes or anybody with a little more detailed style, it would have been an even more enjoyable experience for me. As is, it was an enjoyable experience because the writing was so good. Would have been even better. And this, honestly, to some degree, this is kind of like when you watch something that looks like a VHS, but the story is really good. Like
I'm following you. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So
I've
it's
put up with multiple bad YouTube copies of movies I enjoyed.
Yeah, I
including
felt
Radioactive Dreams. I just did the review on that. Perfect example.
I feel like I was watching or reading a VHS of a better comic. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So, so that was a random just grab. I saw the She-Hulk thing and I thought, I'll take a complete collection, and it is. There isn't really a cliffhanger. Like they try to tap into kind of like what's going to happen next, but this is very much a contained book, beginning and an end. And it was very enjoyable. So if you liked the She-Hulk show and you're looking for something like it, this is very good. Just take into account that the art is not awesome. Good enough because the writing is so good. So there's my review.
Well, I'm very happy you bought it because it's had me fall down what I'm going to call the Madrox hole because holy shit. I always liked this character, but
he's
some
awesome.
of the stuff they've done with him.
Yeah, it's a great.
He doesn't know, according to this, whether he's himself ever had sex in his life, but he knows that his duplicates have, so he doesn't know if that counts. Yes.
No.
For example, although he says his duplicates have had active sex lives, he's not sure whether he himself ever has. The point, this is the best part. This is where it starts off as, oh, that's kind of funny and interesting, and goes into, body horror Cronenberg. Shit, I lost my.
He's into
of,
massive body horror because it's
somebody gets the right thing that can make a really great movie. That he was once uncertain whether he or a dupe had conceived his son with Siren. The result being that his body absorbed the infant into himself because the body regarded it as a duplicate and not an independent entity. Oh yeah.
So he absorbed his own son.
He absorbed his son.
Oh, that's
which would have
awful.
proved that the duplicate had it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
See what I'm saying? This is such a great. I'm used to the simple Madrox thing where he would just multiply himself to fight, but this is great.
No, this is what I liked about him. Like I said, there was a while that he had
blowing
his own
a person up by shoving his fist in their mouth.
But what was that
I have
series
to find
called?
that. Which one?
He had his own series. I read it for a while when it was comics.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, Yeah,
well,
he had his own.
This is all his big
run.
stuff. Here's Marvel.com. Let me go to Marvel. Oh, apparently that page doesn't exist. How about Marvel Wiki? Here we go. Okay, let's see. Does it show his books? There's X Factor, X Core, X Factor Investigations. Oh, that's apparently his own book. Subsequently quit and struck out on his own. So he is in X Factor Investigations.
Is the name of the book. Okay.
Well, it started off with just him, and then apparently he had some people that joined him, but that's what it looks like, yeah. Yeah. And then there's the thing about you were talking about with one of him is a lawyer.
Yeah.
So that's there.
Oh, here it is. Yeah. Peter David, X Factor Investigations, the omnibus.
It. Yeah.
Oh, something else I got to read.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Huh.
Well, you have to see if it's they keep killing Madrox. Is he the leader of X Factor now? Is that what?
I think he was.
Happened?
He's dead now. He's currently dead, but he'll come back.
No, he's
dead. Well,
dead?
That's the thing. Though. Honestly, okay. You know how Batman has the alternate personality thing, so it's always in the background. This is Madrox. I remember a time saying that there's always a duplicate somewhere. Right? So that you can't really ever kill him. Now, the thing they were always fuzzy about, and I don't know if they ever resolved this, that the wiki doesn't mention it, is if the main one, because the main one, I remember Prime, Madrox Prime, was slightly different than all the others in that, for example, other ones could multiply themselves, but they couldn't do it right away. It took a while for them to figure out how to do it. He could always do it from the beginning. So if you kill Prime, does the next first duplicate become Prime? Because they share all their memories and everything. So I would assume that then the other one just becomes Prime. So, yeah, you can kill him, but did you kill him or did you kill the current Prime? Right? So he's basically the self-duplicating robot story, but a person. So, even if he's dead, at some point there'll be some mystery thing where a guy in a hood will be, running around helping out somebody in the background. And they're like, who are you? And they go to punch him, and he turns into two of them. And they're like, I am Madrox, the multiple man. Wait, you were dead. Well, one of me was dead. But, of course, I keep a couple of myself in suitcases in 50 spots along the world. I just break one open.
Trying to find...
There was one that locked himself in a thing. I remember this, that knew he was turning evil or something. So he sealed himself in to, like, a closet or something for years to try to, like, psych himself out of being evil or something. It was a weird story.
Trying to find a collection, though, of all the X Factor stuff is so fucked up because there's been so many versions.
Yeah, there's so many X Factors. I mean...
Yeah, so like this...
there's an X Factor in collecting X Factor.
The X Factor book that he was leader of, I think, is the Peter David series.
Yes,
and that was
that's correct.
2014.
Yeah, that's with Guido and Polaris, I think, was on that team. And...
Yeah, so I'm trying... Yeah, so now I'm kind of sitting there going, okay, so... Yeah, but now there's like... The Omnibus Collection, the Complete Collection, the Orgasm Super Complete Collection. Like, okay, well, what?
I like the original X Factor when it was the X-Men pretending that they weren't mutants. That's a great run of X Factor. And then I like the Peter David one. And outside of that, it's him.
Yeah. So when you look at the X Factor, so Madrox 1 through 5. So there was a solo series, right? Then that became X Factor of his X Factor, right? Yep. And then there's a whole bunch of books in there. Mm-hmm. And then that's Omnibus Volume 2. So what the fuck is Omnibus Volume 1?
1 is probably the old 80s, 90s X Factor. That's probably the original.
No. It's the same. It's the same cover. It's the same book. Let's see. What does that include? That only includes Madrox 1 through 5 and X Factor 1 through 12. Okay.
Well, all right. So you know what? Herein becomes a problem, right? Yeah. Let's say, I don't know, 10 years after that, somebody wrote a prequel series. Well, technically, that would have to go in Omnibus 1 because it was the lead up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm going to have to...
collected editions. All right. You said it's called... All right. So the one that... Okay. Here's a tip for people. Right?
Yes. So
the ones I would advise you read would be X Factor, the original X-Men. X-Men. Now, this is if you don't get any other ones, get these two. X-Men Mutant Massacre Omnibus. Get that, because the Mutant Massacre is Storm when she's got the fucking black leather, and the Mutant Massacre itself is amazing. It's got the Marauders. That's what you want. Get that. Or the Fall of the Mutants. The Fall of the Mutants is excellent because of the artwork more than the story. You want Fall of the Mutants. I know people will say, well, what about Inferno? Inferno's fine. Get Inferno too, but the two you got to get are Mutant Massacre and Fall of the Mutants. Those are the two. Now, as far as what you're talking about with X Factor, here's the collections. So, that's Epic Collections. I'm sorry. Hold on. I got to find the Omnibuy, if that's how they're considered.
Omnibuy.
You know what? The Omnibus collections aren't even mentioned on the Wikipedia. So I don't know what that is. There's Epic Collections.
And then there's All New X Factor.
Well, that's something different. I mean, that's...
Yeah, but it's still Peter David, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. I found it. Okay. X Factor by Peter David Omnibus Volume 2. Well, this doesn't even list a Volume 1.
Yeah.
It just says 2 and 3. So, you know what what you want is Volume 2 and Volume 3. That's what you want.
Wait.
That's the one
you want.
Oh,
yeah. And then there's a book called X Factor Madrox, Multiple Choices.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
oh, I'm sorry. I did find Volume. Omnibus 1 is weirdly listed way above it. And that is...
Yeah,
that looks like that's before the Madrox stuff.
How do you fucking even begin to read this
is a
shit?
Mess. God.
Yeah,
what a mess.
It's a huge mess. Like there's no way to even there's no way to even know where you're supposed to start with this shit.
That's the problem. All this stuff, because there's so many different ways to arrange them.
Yeah.
At some point, you will just be able to go to an app and type in Jamie Madrox, and it'll just tell you what he's in, and you could just buy the issues and do it that way. You know, this is something that I'm going to say 5 years, 10 years from now, this will be very simple, where you could just go in and say, I want the Madrox run of X Factor, and the Marvel app will say, here you go. Do you want to buy it collected or individually? Here's the costs. Bang, done. It downloads, and you read it in order. Today, that's a mess.
Hold on. I did find the X Factor Madrox. Okay, so you can't get this. If you type into Amazon, which is where I found it, X Factor Madrox Multiple Choices. That is the limited series they did of just Madrox 1 through 5 that then became X Factor.
It's considered X Factor Volume 0.
There's
the thing I was talking about with the prequel shit. This is what I'm saying. Oh, God.
Yep. Volume 0. Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah. The amount of things. There's apparently...
Oh, you know what? Wait a minute. I'm sorry. That thing I was talking about sort of already exists. You know what? The thing you just said, right?
Yeah.
The multiple choices, right?
Yeah.
If you open that page again,
yes.
right? And then you click on, see where it says X Factor Volume 1, The Longest Night in the suggested whatever's? Click that.
Yeah.
And then, if you notice, underneath, it says part of X Factor.
I just saw that.
And when you click that, it gives you every book that's part of that run. That's nice. And those are actually sequential.
Interesting.
Yeah, those are 1 through 20. Yeah, okay. And then there's an X Factor Show All. But if you want the Peter David run, which does go all the way through 20. He did 1 through 20 of this. This is the way to do it.
He did 21.
Well, it shows through... is it just counting the first one? Oh, because 0. Yeah, okay, because 0 is 21. So, yeah, all right. Yeah, but you can actually get all of Peter David's things sequentially through Comixology. So you can do what I was talking about. Good, they've already done it. That's great.
Interesting.
And they're not expensive, really. They're $4 a pop, so that's about $80.
I'll have to do my homework
20
later.
volumes?
So,
yeah.
Yes, so I'm sure this has been very interesting for everybody.
Well, if you don't know anything about the Multiple Man, now you've got an education, and that he is a warped character. That's why I like him.
No, he is, and that is always the fascinating thing about a lot of the Marvel characters, but especially the mutants, where there's a lot of really fascinating body horror that can happen with some of these powers.
You know, one of my favorites is Maggot. Never gets enough appreciation,
there you go,
and he is that's a Cronenberg character, top to bottom.
And one of the things that really part of why I like House of X, Powers of X, whatever that series, which it has evolved into something else entirely. But that initial,
it really has. Holy crap,
that initial collection that you could get, I loved the idea of just how weird the mutants were. The whole resurrection thing, where they're using these powers to resurrect X-Men repeatedly, like. Yeah. It is like you said, it is body horror. It is strange, and like you try to imagine yourself living that. I mean, like how Madrox is not mad, I have no idea.
Yeah,
because he's always pulling himself apart and putting himself back together.
Right,
I mean, he absorbed his own child. How awful is that?
Yeah, it's great.
So yeah, it's a great character. I'm glad that somebody went and had a lot of fun and did stuff with the character.
Yeah,
but I mean, but there's a lot of X-Men characters or X-Men universe characters.
Sure.
You can tell interesting stories about them because there's so many weird elements.
I
think
agree.
about it.
Yes, the mutants are the most interesting part of Marvel's stuff, without a doubt.
And I think that the direction the next wave of Marvel movies. I think that they're going to reset their universe at some point and go mutants.
Oh, I hope so. Because there's a lot of interesting stories. If people are allowed to tell weird stories, they could do a lot with the mutant stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So. And that's all I got for you.
Okay. Well, speaking of concepts that could be done much better or weirder, I guess. All right. So, I've had a movie on my playlist for a while that I'm gonna send you the poster of it because I want you to see the poster. Right? And I want to see if this is a movie that, this... Okay, look at this poster. Okay?
Well, let me find your link there.
I just put it into Skype, so I actually put the image in there. Right? Now, that looks... When you look at that, what do you think that movie's going to be? It's from 1971.
I either hope that it's a movie about a biker werewolf that terrorizes bikers, or it's a group of werewolf bikers.
Okay. So...
That's what I hope it's about.
No. And as I said in my short review, technically, it is. In pure written words on the page, it is about a group of bikers who part of them, some of them become werewolves. So when you see that poster and you read that summary, which does describe it basically the same, is that bikers stumble across a satanic church, they become cursed, they turn to werewolves. You go, oh, okay, this is going to be gore and nudity. That's what this is. This is going to become
One can hope. One can only hope.
One would hope. Right. Okay, so I'm like, all right, I'm in for that. So I start watching it, and I normally say that you can judge a movie by its opening 10 minutes. Normally. That the first 10 minutes are going to tell you whether you're in or out. But there are, of course, exceptions to every rule, and this is one of them. When you watch the opening of this thing, you will think it's going to be just a roving movie with a gang of rowdy bikers who probably are already werewolves or will be made into werewolves by a random encounter in the first 10 minutes. Because the movie, I read a little bit of background on it. The movie was made in 16 days, and most of the people in it are not actors, but are in fact bikers.
Bikers. Right.
Which you can identify them right away because they basically have no lines and they're just partying. That's fine. So when it opens, you just see them riding and doing tricks on their bikes, and they're riding around and they encounter a truck with two people in it, and the truck kind of runs one of them off the road to be a jerk, and then they start to pursue that truck and find him. And I went, okay, this is what it's going to be. One of the people in the truck will be a werewolf. They're going to catch up with him at night. They're going to be fighting him. He's going to bite one of them. Or multiples of them or something, and they will become werewolves. So when they caught up to him, I'm like, okay, well, it's during the day, but I believe a werewolf bite, no matter when, works. I don't know that there's a day-night cycle on that necessarily. So I was like, okay, this may still be the thing. But instead, when they catch up to him, they just beat the shit out of the guy, throw him in the back of the truck, and then run the truck off. And I'm like, okay. And then they go into this gas station, which is also a bar, which I don't know if that's a 70s thing or if that's still a thing, but I've never encountered a gas station bar. So maybe this is set in California, so maybe down south they have those in Southern California. I don't know.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, interesting, because I would not think those two things necessarily go together, but whatever. So they go into this gas station bar, and they're the biker gang themselves are depicted as rowdy, but not to the point where you hate them. So they break some glasses here and there. They're a lively bunch, but they're not the malevolent Hell's Angels types that would make you actually want them to all be killed by werewolves. You know what I mean? There's a line that you can come up to.
They're not awful, is what you're saying.
Yeah, they're just over the line to obnoxious mischief makers, and that's fine. So, because the attendant at the gas station seems to be a little bit slow, and so they start to kind of play with him, and I'm like, oh man, are they gonna make fun of him? Because then you start to hate them. But instead, they're like, oh, have you ever seen a naked woman? And they're like, oh, because they have like 4 women with them. They're like, oh, show him some tits, and the woman lifts up her shirt, and he's good natured, and so are they, and they're letting him kind of like motorboater, and it's all fun and games. Oh, and I'm like, okay, this is 71, it's free love, like I get it, this is what this is. So, but they're not being mean to him. So I'm like, this is fine, okay.
A free motorboating, okay,
sure. So as that's going on, again, up to now seems like a standard flick, nothing going on. And then you get introduced to this one character. Now let me look at something because I should have verified this. I want to verify one thing because I'm pretty sure that the character's name is, it's Tarot, like the card. Tarot is the character's name. Okay. And I believe they were going for the Native American angle with him because he's talking about my people and connection to spirituality. And from the way the way he looks and the way he talks and the way they refer to him, I think they were going for a riff on a Native American character, which very often in movies like this would be conflated with mystical and, supernatural and, type of stuff. That's the kind of stereotype that often gets applied. And I think that's what they're going for here.
Okay.
So the leader of I have to show you this. The leader of the biker gang could have looks like Wolverine. He looks like fucking Wolverine. If they had cast this in a 70s X-Men, he would have been the perfect casting choice. Can I find an image of him?
Did you see something about, I was reading a thing the other day where they're saying that the character of Wolverine is actually based off of an actor?
Well, okay, I got a picture. I'm going to send you this picture.
Have you ever read about this?
Well, no, not Wolverine. I know that's very common in comics, but look at this guy in that picture I sent you, and you tell me that guy with a little bit of hairstyling doesn't look like Wolverine.
Okay, hold on. Let's see.
And the Tarot character is there. So I'm actually going to play a clip from this very scene so you can see the character I'm talking about. So Tarot and Wolverine should be very clear who I'm talking about in each of those scenes. Look at that guy.
All right, so Tarot is the guy with the headband.
The headband, yes.
Yes.
Look at the other guy. If they made a Wolverine show in the 70s.
Could see. I mean, if they took the mustache off, I could see that.
Hey, they could leave it on. He looks like the Madripoor kind of Wolverine to me, like the rough and when he's really rough and,
Yeah, Patch.
Yeah, Patch. The Patch, yeah. That's exactly what like that guy, the whole movie, the way his voice is good for it, he kind of looks right. He looks like the Canadian roughneck type, whatever Wolverine is supposed to be. But anyway,
right,
so in that scene,
I've got the guy.
Okay, show me. Maybe this guy's better.
What is it? Is it this guy?
Let's see.
I'm looking for the name.
By the way.
No, I know, but you'll have the image there, so they can link to it.
Say, if you give me the actor's name, that'll help too.
Is it? Oh man, I can't. I'm trying to find the actual. They have a picture of the guy, but I don't.
The guy I'm talking about, for anybody who wants to look it up, his name is Stephen Oliver. So if you want to look up that actor, I'm
going to paste the whole article to you, and then I'll let you look at the picture because it's in there.
Sure. Okay.
I don't have a name for the guy though. That's the problem.
All right, let's see.
Just scroll down. You'll see Wolverine. He's just a little bit down.
Okay, well, I can see the drawing, but man, that guy doesn't look like Wolverine to me. I mean, I get it. That's what they based it on. The one where he's in the hockey outfit, the crazy eye sells it.
Yeah, when you think of early Wolverine in the comics.
Yeah, no, I see that. The guy's name.
They stylized him as he became
Paul
more popular.
D'Amato. I know who Paul D'Amato is. Yeah, he's been in a ton of stuff. Yeah, Paul D'Amato. Okay, yeah, that's the actor's name. Okay, sure, fine. Like I said, this guy, I think it's more of the hair for me than the actual facial. Like his hair looks, I mean, that's his natural hair. This is obviously not, CG'd or anything. So that's the scene in the gas station bar. That picture I sent you, that's the scene. And so what happens is a bit of dialogue, which I'm going to play.
Jeez.
Let me adjust the volume.
Yeah, and now that you've given me that guy's name, I looked him up. If you look up Paul D'Amato Wolverine, there's a few images there where they're like it's the cheekbones, like the way they from an artistic perspective, it makes complete sense. It's a good face. I sent you an image.
On.
If you blow that image up and just look at it, you'll see.
No, it's there. I'm actually sort of surprised they didn't go with his well, maybe in the Berserker Rages he does look like with the big eyes, because those
eyes are
crazy
scarier than Wolverine's, right?
That's what I'm saying. And so maybe that's because the image is like calm Wolverine going, "Hey baby, how you doing?"
he's got the I mean he's dressed up as like a hockey enforcer for that role, so
yeah, that's great. So
go on.
For whatever reason, but in the movie they constantly call this guy Tarot, which I guess maybe that's just supposed to be I don't know if it's supposed to be like a way of needling him, because at first that element doesn't appear. Later on there seems to be some of this thing where they keep making fun of him for being too spiritual or whatever, but at first they're just calling him Tarot, and I'm like, you mean tarot? And he has tarot cards, so it makes sense. That's what his name would be.
So it was just saying it wrong, essentially.
I think it's something where they literally don't know how to. I don't know. Whatever it is. So basically, there's this whole exchange where Adam, who is the Wolverine guy, so Wolverine wants Tarot to read his cards for. Of course, I'm going to use biker parlance for Adam's lady, my old lady. Read the cards for my old lady, and Tarot. Well, I'll just play the dialogue, because he says he doesn't like to read cards for women, although that's never really explained, but it's very distinctive. He says it very clearly. So I'm going to play this bit of dialogue, because this is the setup for everything that kind of happens next. So I'm going to play this bit here.
Hey,
Tarot.
You pissed off because nobody wants you to read their cards. Hey, we all know how we're going to die, baby. We're going to crash and burn.
I think that's too simple, man. These here cards take the blindfold off.
You know, you're superstitious just like an old witch. I'd save that shit for Halloween.
I didn't make it up. Been around before this country was invented.
Take care of it, baby.
Come on, give me some dough.
Hey, Mouse,
No.
give me a little head with my beer.
Why don't you read my fortune?
I don't read fortunes, I read cards. And I don't like to read them for chicks anyway.
Come on, baby, read her cards. You know, that's kind of a woman's trip anyway, ain't it?
Right. So that's the setup for him, and you can hear him like sorting the cards. So basically, he goes ahead and reads the cards for the woman of the leader. So Adam's woman. Let me see what her name is. I don't want to just call her Adam's woman. I believe her name is. I don't think she's Shirley. Is she Shirley? Oh, Helen. So Helen is Wolverine's old lady, and so he reads the cards and basically says, "Okay, you're going to die when you get." He says, I believe, gets. I didn't pull the clip for this. I think he says she's going to get struck by lightning at a religious temple. And that's how she'll die.
He's very specific. Okay.
Well, yeah, because the cards, he explains it in the movie how it is, and so it's like, okay, and then they go, and then the next scene is, they leave this place, and I think, did I pull the clip of where he says? No, I didn't. There's a thing where they're kind of still riffing on him about the cards, and he's kind of starting to get annoyed about it, because he's like, hey, you wanted me to read the cards, I did, so I don't want to hear about it. I did what you wanted me to do. And he's like, you know what? And I think it's not clear whether this is supposed to be him knowing what will happen and setting them up, or if it's just a bad byproduct. But he says, if you guys want to, and I love the terminology in this is so 70s, where they're talking about vibes and crazy spiritual stuff, man. It's great. But he's like, if you want to know what the truth is, baby, I'll show it to you. And so he leads them to this temple. And this temple, you don't know right away it's supposed to be a satanic temple, but it has a weird cross on top, which I guess maybe in the 70s that was enough to qualify as satanic. It was a cross with like a circle and like a set of horns on it. So I guess that's Satan. And so they kind of all just roll in there, and they see the temple, but it's a little bit off in the distance, but they don't think anything of it. And they're all kind of just sitting there and drinking beer and just kind of goofing off. And then out of nowhere, all these hooded monks suddenly show up, whose faces you can't see. But they're carrying wine and bread. And so they just walk up to them, and these very, very trusting bikers take the bread and wine, and they start eating, and they start drinking, and then they all just kind of start passing out. And then as they do it, the leader of the cult, who I've got at least 2 clips from him, because, man, from what I read, he made up a lot of this stuff, and it's fantastic. So I'm going to play the first clip where they're passed out, And as he's saying this, you see him pull one of the hairs from the head of Helen. So he pulls one of her hairs as he's saying this. This guy's performance is a masterpiece. So just listen. This is great. So here we go.
I am called One, the one who speaks for them who must remain forever silent. The hair of many is the hair of one.
I don't know what any of this means.
One single solitary strand should suffice.
Okay, so he pulls her hair.
Got it.
And then all the monks go back into the temple. Now, again, you don't see any of the faces except for this one guy. And even the one guy, for a while, I didn't think they were going to show his face because they keep doing these very dramatic 70s zoom of just showing his eyes. Even though his eyes are pretty much just normal blue eyes, but they're very wide. It's supposed to be like, oh, he's a Satanist. And his mouth, really close-up, disturbing close-ups of his mouth because it's all tobacco stained and gross. And they just keep, when he's talking, like that whole line is just a close-up of his mouth. And so they go in, and then they start the satanic ritual where he basically kills a cat and puts its blood into a cup, but it's not a real cat at all. It's clearly a dummy, so it didn't bother me because I'm like, okay, yeah, it's like Foleyed in cat sounds that don't match what's going on at all. So you don't really, if you're bothered by animal stuff, you won't be because it doesn't look real at all. There's a real cat up until a certain point, and then it becomes very clearly a stuffed, I don't know, sock with fur on it or something. So he kills the cat, and I think this is the longest clip I've got. Then he does, again, from what I read, an improvised satanic summoning, which goes like this. This is fantastic. I mean, I was completely enthralled because it's clearly drug-fueled lunacy. But here we go.
I pour the blood of the beast in this vessel of silver to sanctify this place, impure for man, bird, or beast. Now that the beast is drained and the cup is filled, I write your unholy name thrice in blood, so that all that are summoned will do your will. With this staff, freshly cut of hazelwood, I shall draw a circle 3 feet from this altar so that no malignant or unfriendly spirit can enter and do me harm. I leave this break for the bride of Satan and none other. I, One, servant of the highest by virtue of his unholy name, Lucifer, do sanctify unto myself this circumference of blood from the east, Lufa from the west, Thoth from the south, Sheket from the north, Met.
Right. So it's very obvious that he's making it up, which I think is one of the best parts of it. He's just literally making this stuff up, which is great.
I was actually enjoying the music there.
No, this whole movie is that music. Like this I kept trying to figure out what this movie felt like as I was watching it. And I thought, oh, this is if Jim Morrison made a werewolf movie. That's what this is. It is totally something that a drug-addled prima donna would invent as a pretentious werewolf film, right? So they do the ceremony.
What's terrible is that description so perfectly conjures up an image, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's this movie. That's what I'm saying. So it is this movie. What that conjures up is this movie. So they do this whole little thing, and then the Helen gets up. Everybody else is still in a stupor. She gets up and walks in the temple, and gets up on top of this altar thing, strips completely nude, starts dancing around with a skull, and everybody's chanting, Bride of Satan, Bride of Satan, Bride of Satan, and it's going over. And then Wolverine wakes up, realizes she's gone, very quickly deduces that she probably went into the temple, takes all the bikers, and they run in there, and they start killing all of I don't know if they're killing them, but it sure looks like they're killing them. They're knocking them down pretty hard. So they're basically beating the shit out of all the monks. And as they're doing it, the monks keep swiping their faces and leaving these black marks across their faces as they fall down, right? And of course, what is that? That's them being cursed or whatever, or, something, which I'm like, okay, so this is how they become werewolves. It's not bites. It's the fact that they're being swiped or whatever. They're being painted with Lucifer's black blood of the earth, whatever it is. So they knock them all down. They get out.
Swipe left for werewolf. Swipe right
swipe
for
left,
vampires.
Oh, hold on. That's the show title. Swipe. Hold on. Swipe left for werewolf. Hold on, that's a great one. Okay. So they do all that. They do the swipe lefts, and they escape with her, and they go on the road. And Wolverine's like,
so
all right, man,
they've all been cursed. They've all been cursed, but they're on the road.
They're all cursed, but they don't know it.
Got
at
it.
this point. So they go back on the road, and Wolverine's like, this scene is too heavy, man. We got to go out in the desert. We got to clear our heads, man. We got to boogie on out of here, baby. And so they go out, and they go out to the desert to just kind of, they find a bunch of abandoned cars, and they're going to set them all on fire, and they're just going to hang out and kind of try to sweep away those trippy vibes, man. It's too heavy. So they're out in the desert.
Sorry, I love that. These trippy vibes. Let's go out to the desert and burn some cars. We'll feel much better.
Burn some cars, which is exactly what they do. And so they go out there, and as night falls, the Helen is having these weird dreams where there's blood and Satan and a cat being killed. And blah, blah, blah. So she runs off, and Wolverine chases after her, and they're starting to have sex, or they were going to maybe get to that point, at which point she bites him on the neck, which is more of a vampire thing than werewolves, but whatever,
right.
These 2 puncture marks.
Swipe right for a vampire.
They swipe right for Vamp Wolf. And so she bites him, and then they kind of, then we cut away from them, and then you see 2 other members of the gang, which is a guy and a girl, and they're going off to have sex in like a gully or something, at which point we see werewolf hands rip their throats out, and that part, I went, oh, this is very art house gore, because it's kind of like the blood is spurting in slow motion, and it's out of focus, and like their heads come forward, and I'm like, whoa, okay. Again, Jim Morrison werewolf film. So I was like, this is interesting. If this goes heavy gore with all this artistic weirdness, this could be a really wacky film. And so then the next day, everybody finds
Surprise,
them.
It is a wacky film.
Well, it's wacky in a different way. So they find the bodies, and they write it off because apparently Wolverine and his old lady have no memory of what's going on. So they don't know they killed them. Because at first I thought, oh, they're going to be like acting shady and
so the two of them are werewolves.
The 2 of them at this point are werewolves. She was made one by the Bride of Satan ceremony, and then by biting him, she made him into a werewolf. Now, there are these sequences where the other gang members are kind of dancing around the fire almost in a hypnotic trance. So I thought that meant they'd all be transforming, but I don't think that's what it... Well, we'll get to the ending. The ending may explain that. But they never transform. It's always just these 2. So then they're like, oh, man, this sucks. Let's bury him. So they bury him. And then the next night, 2 more get killed. And the whole time, Taro is like, no, there's something going on. Like, he's suspicious of something. But there again, the movie almost at times makes it seem like he might be the other werewolf. But the ending does not bear that out. So then, again, 2 more people are killed and end up, but the werewolves now throw their bodies into the fire, so they burn into basically ash. And so they find the glasses of one of them and realize that they were in the fire, at which point Taro says this, and this has some great 70s lingo, so get ready for it because here it comes.
You dudes just don't want to see the reality, do you? That was no accident. It was heavy. Somebody's controlling the vibes.
Yeah, so shit like this, right?
It's heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy.
This shit is heavy.
So now, I don't remember where this...
Controlling the vibes.
Let me play this, because this is also really good. Was this... I think this is later. Oh, yeah, okay. So after he says that, Wolverine's like, shut up with that mystical shit, man. You're spooking everybody, and we don't need that trippy vibe, baby, so get out of here. So then Taro goes off on his own, and he's sitting up on a rock, and he's kind of doing the, I'm trying to commune with the spirits thing, and Wolverine comes up to him, and he's like, man, and I'll just play the clip. I'm pretty sure that's this, so I'm going to play this clip, is where they're sitting on the rocks.
I don't know what you guys want to call this, but it ain't no accident. I saw him last. He wasn't drunk and he wasn't stoned. I don't think he jumped in the fire to keep his feet warm. Something else happened. Something spiritual that you guys don't want to relate to.
More of that magic trip. If it's gonna take going back and getting those monks to get our heads straight, let's do it.
Okay, so that sets up. Sorry, I jumped ahead because the first clip was from the first murder, and this was the second one about jumping in the fire. So they determined, okay, what we got to do is Fury Road style. We got to go back the way we came. We got to go and we got to kill all the monks, right?
Man, this shit's too heavy. We got to get back on the hogs and go kill those mystic shitters.
You guys don't want to relate, baby. So, right. So they're about to leave, and Taro's like, nope, that's, there's no point in that. You're in denial. At which point Wolverine gets really pissed off, and they get into this fist fight. And, and they kind of, and then Taro gets knocked out.
You know what you've put in my head now is just the worst thing. Yeah. Do you know the shaman character from Alpha Flight?
Yes. Yeah, Shaman.
I've just got Shaman and fucking Wolverine
Taro.
in my head now.
That's
Taro is Shaman.
I wouldn't be shocked if those characters were based off this movie. Yeah, it could be. Whatever. So yes, that's accurate for what basically it's the biker versions of them. You've got it right. So
all you need now is Wendigo. Wait, are they fighting the Wendigo?
No, sadly there is no Wendigo in this.
No, I know, but aren't the werewolves basically the Wendigo? Because the Wendigo's a curse.
Yes, you know what? You're right. So it is. It's all Alpha Flight. The secret is it's all
Alpha Flight.
Oh
man, that's so funny. It's B movie Alpha Flight.
Yep, you relating to that spiritual vibe, man.
Beta Flight,
into
man.
It, baby.
Yeah.
So they had this big fight and they knocked Taro out, and they basically, I don't know what they intended to do with him, but basically he wakes up after getting his ass kicked, and it's night. And they're all around a fire, at which point Helen and Wolverine transform into werewolves.
Swipe left.
They werewolf out. Now the thing is, and this might give you a key to kind of what my overall review of this is. This is with 9 minutes left in the movie. We have not seen a full werewolf transformation until 9 minutes in the film. So I'm like, what the hell is going to happen here?
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So they burn Helen to death because she's a werewolf. So they manage to catch her and they burn her to death. Then Wolverine gets on his bike and starts riding off as a werewolf. So he's a werewolf biker.
How does the wolf makeup look?
It's okay. It very much, it looks like the kind of classic Wolfman thing where, it's just a lot of fur around eyes and some fake teeth. It's not terrible because you don't see the transformation. They just, they're in shadow and then they're in werewolf, and it's a perfectly fine mask. I mean, it is the classic version of Wolfman. So they probably bought masks and put some black paint around them. It's at night, so you don't see a lot of details. It's fine. Wolverine's makeup looks better than his old lady's does. I don't know if there was a reason for that, if they were trying to make it look female and they kind of messed it up. So that looks less good. Wolverine looks fine. I mean, he's wearing werewolf hands and he's got a werewolf mask and the rest of him is a biker. It's not like he suddenly is completely fur top to toe that you can see, but you'd think he is underneath. But he doesn't get massively bigger. It's perfectly serviceable for a Jim Morrison werewolf film. So don't worry about it. So he rides off, and at one point they manage to put a stick in the spokes, which makes him flip, and the bike explodes and he burns to death. Right? So they're dead. So the rest of them are like, well, fuck it. We're going to go back, and we're going to go and, we're going to go get them and kill them. Now, I don't remember what ending. What is ending? Hold on. I don't even know what this clip is. Let me play this. I don't know what this is. It just says ending. What is the ending? Hold on. I'm going to play it. Fuck it. So, whatever. Wait, is this when they get back?
Just play it.
Just play it. Play it. No, I got to explain. Now I know what this is. I forgot there was a little.
Oh, the music! The music is great. This is right out of Escape from New York.
It's fantastic. So they get to the temple. They break in, and they find all the monks, and they go to attack them. And then when the monks turn around, it's them. The monks are them. And as they see themselves, the biker selves collapse. And then at the very end, and that's where this clip comes from, you see that Taro is now the head priest, and behind him, somehow, Wolverine's old lady is alive and the bride of Satan again. And that's when this plays.
We who are one with the Prince of Darkness welcome you. For we are all one with him.
And then you cut to a scene outside where there's a bunch of bikers in shadow riding on the road, and the credits come up. So
Did they absorb them? Were they always them?
Well, I think the idea is supposed to be, this is my interpretation, is that once they were swiped, they were always going to become the priests that they killed. Because that's what the black swipes were. Was not actually, I mean, they became the property of Satan. Because he says we're all, and Taro becoming the head priest makes sense because he was the most spiritually, in tune one. But I don't know. Because that's the thing about this movie. I'll never watch it again. But it is probably the weirdest werewolf film I've ever watched.
I want the soundtrack.
The soundtrack is groovy, baby. It's great. It's all that through the whole movie. It's like bongo drums. It's like Matthew McConaughey had a one-man band when he was high and did the soundtrack. It's a really interesting movie that only a subset of a subset of a subset of people would ever watch twice. I think in my short review I said 50 people on the planet. That's probably an accurate assessment. Because the thing is, almost nothing happens in this movie, especially when you look at that poster. You are expecting gonzo, Rob Zombie style werewolf bikers, shredding people and just nudity and shit flying everywhere. And it's really just long stretches of people riding around and bongo music or sitar music.
Yeah, it's there's an art house vibe to the horror.
That's what I said. It's Jim Morrison's Werewolves. That's what it is. And that's the most accurate way to portray it. I'm not sorry I watched it because it was completely the opposite of what I expected. I mean, it was so far out there from what that poster was selling that I was really hypnotically entranced, almost ensorcelled by the movie. Maybe that was the point, where I'm just watching it going, what is this?
They swiped you.
They did. So when I got to the end, I was like, wow, this is arty pretentious nonsense. But I'm kind of glad I watched it. I will never watch it again because now that I've seen it, there's no gimmick to it anymore outside of the lingo, which is fun once, but it's not enough to sustain it. But there's, like I said, you only see in the kill scenes, there's not enough gore, so gore people won't watch it. The werewolves are basically, you see some hands in the 2 kill scenes, which is not enough for people who are even creature feature people. And you don't see the transformation till, I'm not kidding, 9 minutes before the movie's over. And then you get the ending, and the ending's going to piss off a whole bunch of other people because they're going to be like, wait, I don't get it. What is that supposed to be? So for some weirdos like me, it's worth watching once. And it's free everywhere. I watched it on Tubi. It's all over the place because who the hell's going to buy this? Nobody. So you can watch it very easily. Whether you want to, you just have to know. Again, Jim Morrison's Werewolves is the way to describe it. If that sounds like what you want, which is some...
It doesn't sound like a bad trip, though. That's the weird thing.
It's a good one-time journey for a lot of people. It's a return journey for a very small amount of people. That's what I mean. Is I'm not saying it's a bad movie. Even Len, I said, Len, you could remake this and make it really good. Because honestly, I do think, because this is so small in scope that Len could do it with a limited budget.
Honestly,
and he would emphasize the stuff.
If you brought the full transformation out sooner, and you had more with honestly, if you made it so the gang had to go to great length to stop the werewolf, and then the sucker punches that when they go to stop the other guys, they're destroyed. I know that you're always like, all right, if you tweak this a little bit, you could. If you tweak this a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, or if you could even keep the story the same, but you need to add more gore and more explicit stuff because that's what the movie promises. That poster is like a Russ Meyer version
or
of this.
You need more werewolf tomfoolery. Remember that werewolf movie where the cop becomes a werewolf?
Yes. Wolf Cop. Yeah.
Wolf Cop. And that level of biker absurdity kind of thing, you know?
Right. Yeah, I agree. That's the thing, is that's what's holding it back. It's not the premise is fine. I mean, the setup is interesting and it's weird, and I like the idea of werewolf bikers. Like that image is great. The same way that Ghost Rider works as the haunted biker guy. Like you could do a gang of. I would even just make them all werewolves, and maybe Taro splits off to go find help to try to kill them, and he's the hero of the movie. But then when he gets to the temple to kill them, he sees himself as the priest and realizes that he was doomed because he was cursed from the outset. Stuff like there's ways to make this work without changing much of it. 10,
honestly,
15%.
what would be fascinating to me is if Taro realizes they're all cursed so that they essentially have to destroy themselves to destroy the cult.
Sure. There's lots of ways you can go.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting stuff to do here. Yeah.
That's what I said. When I talked to Len, I said the bare bones of a good movie are here. They just didn't do it well, and he agreed. He said, "Yeah, it's interesting ideas, and they didn't execute it right." And I completely agree. It's a really interesting premise, and even the way it's shot, I'm not going to criticize because there's a couple of really neat shots in it. So it wasn't because you hear a 16-day movie, it's like, okay, this is lower effort, nothing. It's not that. Like the soundtrack is wild. There's some really good shots and I left out some really dreamy sequences where there's a part where there's a sandstorm that for some reason teleports most of them into the deep desert, but not all of them for some reason that's never explained. And they never really get into it, but it's an interesting thing where there's all this mystical stuff happening and you don't really know why. And that's okay. You don't have to explain it all, but they don't maximize the weirdness potential enough. And so instead, for a lot of people, it will either be boring or a movie they'll never watch again. But I think there's a good group of people who would enjoy watching it once. It's that I don't think many people would ever watch it again or say buy it and own it type of thing. Yeah. Because it doesn't, it falls short in too many areas to merit a second viewing. That's all I would say. But it is free to watch everywhere. So if the premise and the music sounds wacky, which it is, then you can go watch it without having to pay anything because it's on multiple services, and I'm pretty sure the whole thing is on YouTube and at least a couple channels. So if you're into weird, pretentious art house werewolf films, and I don't know that there's that many, then Werewolves on Wheels, 1971, is worth watching once. You would have to decide whether you'll watch it again. But as a complete slice of early 70s up your own ass filmmaking, I mean, there are rumors, I don't think there's anything to them, that Dennis Hopper secretly ghost directed this. Now that both seems insane and yet completely possible.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. It does feel oddly, yeah.
Easy Wolfer. It's Easy Wolfer. I mean, whatever. So again, I don't want to over promise what the movie does because
you have not. No, you have not. You haven't oversold this. I get it.
but it is. I don't know that there's much else like this. I actually have to go look at how many. If there's other, I don't think there's a lot of biker werewolf filmmaking. I don't think there is. As the first thing when I look up biker werewolf, this movie comes up first.
There you go.
Although apparently there is a movie called High Moon that is a biker werewolf film from 2019, and it looks like it's a joke. It looks like it's a comedy, though. I will look around because I am curious. If somebody's done a good version of this, it's a potentially really good concept. Biker werewolves sounds wildly fun. So I will look. Oh, Glenn Danzig is making one. Well, I don't know if I'd have any hope for that, but yeah. Howlers from 2019, a gunfighter from the Old West. Oh no, that's a gunfighter from the Old West returns from the grave to stop bloodthirsty werewolf motorcycle gangs in a small town. Okay. I'll watch some of this shit and I'll tell you if it's any good. I don't know if it is, but I guarantee none of it has the same feel as this movie because this is totally a product of its time. So, in summary, if it's an interesting premise, watch it once. Doubt you'll watch it again, but since you don't have to pay for it, go for it. And on that note, we will bid you to have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you again next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.